Over 100 million people gather to watch the Super Bowl each year. What was once a simple championship game has turned into a global event that blends sports, entertainment, and culture in a way unmatched by other sporting events. The origins of the Super Bowl trace back to a merger between two rival football leagues, the National Football League and the American Football League. In the early 1960s, the NFL was the dominant professional football league in the United States, but the AFL posed a challenge to the NFL's supremacy. After several years of competition, the two leagues agreed to merger in 1966, which would eventually lead to creating a single unified league with two conferences, the NFC and the AFC. Once they reached an agreement, the NFL and AFL organizers sought to create a championship game that would decide the ultimate champion of this new league. Initially, the title game was called the AFL-NFL World Championship, with the first game being held on January 15, 1967 at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Despite being a somewhat humble beginning, this game would mark the start of an annual tradition that would grow in both scope and significance. The championship's game name would evolve in 1969 when NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle, inspired by his children, coined the term Super Bowl. This rebranding was part of an effort to give the game a more distinctive identity, setting it apart from the regular season games or conference championships. The name Super Bowl stuck, and with it, an increasing level of media attention, sponsorship, and public interest. The AFL also gained credibility when the New York Jets, led by quarterback Joe Namath, famously upset the heavily favored Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III in 1969. This victory helped solidify the AFL's legitimacy and set the stage for the full merger of the two leagues in 1970, creating the modern NFL we know today. The 1970s also marked a turning point as broadcasting technology, especially colored television, reached broader audiences. Super Bowl IV in 1970, which saw Kansas City Chiefs defeating the Minnesota Vikings, was the first to be broadcast in color. By the mid-1970s, the game had garnered national attention, and the Super Bowl was firmly established as the most-watched television event in the U.S. Meanwhile, the game itself continued to evolve in terms of competitiveness and impact. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the NFL expanded, with more teams joining and an increasing number of players available to compete. The league also gained a global following as the NFL began marketing its games internationally. The Super Bowl continued to attract top-tier talent, with teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers, San Francisco 49ers, and Dallas Cowboys becoming dominant forces. The 1980s saw a trend of dynastic teams, while the 1990s featured more unpredictable mashups and high-scoring games. The Super Bowl halftime show, while once a simple marching band performance, began to evolve into a spectacle of its own. In 1977, the Super Bowl began incorporating high-profile entertainers to perform during the halftime show, and by the 1980s and 1990s, the halftime show became an even bigger part of the Super Bowl experience. Today, we have seen performances by stars such as Michael Jackson, Prince, and Beyoncé, solidifying the game's place in popular culture as both a sporting event and an entertainment spectacle. As the 21st century began, the Super Bowl had fully integrated itself into the fabric of American culture. Super Bowl Sunday had become an unofficial holiday marked by family gatherings, parties, and of course, television viewership. In the 2000s, the Super Bowl's status as a cultural touchstone continued to grow, and with it, branding surrounded the event. The commercials that aired during the game became a cultural phenomenon of its own, often featuring expensive, high-budget ads from some of the biggest brands around the world. The cost of a 30-second Super Bowl ad has skyrocketed from $37,500 in 1967 to over $7 million today, reflecting the event's unparalleled reach and impact on marketing strategies worldwide. These commercials, along with the halftime shows, became just as anticipated as the game itself. The Super Bowl has produced countless memorable moments. In Super Bowl XIII, Terry Bradshaw of the Pittsburgh Steelers threw 4 touchdown passes to defeat the Dallas Cowboys, cementing the Steelers' dynasty of the 1970s. Super Bowl XXV saw the New York Giants edge out the Buffalo Bills 20-19 after Scott Norwood's infamous missed field goal. More recently, in Super Bowl LI, the New England Patriots, led by quarterback Tom Brady, overcame a 28-3 deficit to defeat the Atlanta Falcons in the first overtime game in Super Bowl history. Today, the Super Bowl is more than just a football game. It is a worldwide spectacle. It has evolved from a modest championship game into a grand cultural and commercial event. Its history reflects the rise of American football as both a sport and a marketing phenomenon. As it continues to grow in stature, the Super Bowl will likely remain at the forefront of American American sports culture for years to come, combining athletic prowess, entertainment, and commercial success into one unforgettable night each year.